Well, John chapter 21. It is the last book of, or last chapter in John here, and Steve, I thought did a great job last month. If you missed that one, that was very good. Took a very challenging passage of scripture, and I thought he did a great job with that. And I think we kind of need to go back a couple of verses in order to get a little bit of a running start in here for John chapter 21. And so I want to look at John 20 verses 30 and 31 and listen to this. Now Jesus did many other signs in the presence of the disciples, which are not written in this book. But these are written so that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. Now, as I looked at that to me sounds like a pretty good summation of the book of John, right? I mean, I would think you could stop right there and you go, no, that's a great way to end it. It's a challenge for us to share the word. It's a challenge for why these are written and what we should do with this. But it's belief in Jesus Christ as God's Son, and through that belief, there is salvation in His name. And so I was thinking that seems like an interesting spot, and then it continues on. Now there are some scholars that have gone, well, this was added later, or there was some maybe another writer added this in at the same time, or something like that. I don't buy any of that personally. What makes sense to me is John had a couple of things that he needed to clear up here towards the end. There's a couple of things hanging, and not hanging chads, that's another thing. No, there's a couple of things just left hanging here that he had to deal with, that he wanted to make sure that people understood and were clear on. So he wrote chapter 21 here. And by the way, I think you all know this. There were no chapter breaks, anything like that in the original writings. It was all just one flow all the way through. So the chapter breaks were put in there at the end. That's not to say they're a bad thing. They help us remember where we are and find spots, right? But chapter 21. Let's read this and then we'll talk about it here. After this, Jesus revealed himself again to the disciples by the Sea of Tiberias. And he revealed himself in this way: Simon Peter, Thomas, called the twin, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and two other of his disciples were together. Simon Peter said to them, "I am going fishing." They said to him, "We will go with you." They went out and got into a boat, but that night they caught nothing. Just as day was breaking, Jesus stood on the shore, yet the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to them, "Children, do you have any fish?" They answered him, "No." He said to them, "Cast the net on the right side of the boat, and you will find some." So they cast it, and now they were not able to haul it in because of the quantity of fish. That disciple whom Jesus loved, therefore, said to Peter, "It is the Lord." When Simon heard that it was the Lord, he put on his outer garment, for he was stripped for work, and threw himself into the sea. The other disciples came in the boat, dragging the net full of fish, for they were not far from the land, but about 100 yards off. When they got out on land, they saw a charcoal fire in place, with fish laid out on it, and bread. Jesus said to them, "Bring some of the fish that you have just caught." So Simon Peter went aboard and hauled the net ashore full of large fish, 153 of them. And although there were so many, the net was not torn. Jesus said to them, "Come and have breakfast." Now none of the disciples dared ask him, "Who are you?" For they knew it was the Lord. Jesus came and took the bread and gave it to them, and so with the fish. And this was now the third time that Jesus was revealed to the disciples after he was raised from the dead. When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." He said to him, "Feed my lambs." He said to him a second time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." He said to him, "Tend my sheep." And he said to him a third time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was grieved because he said to him a third time, "Do you love me?" And he said to him, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Feed my sheep. Truly, truly, I say to you, when you were young, you used to dress yourself and walk wherever you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and another will dress you and carry you where you do not want to go." This he said to show by what kind of death he was to glorify God. And after saying this, he said to him, "Follow me." Peter turned and saw the disciple whom Jesus loved following them, and one who had been reclining at the table close to him, and had said, "Lord, who is it that is going to betray you?" When Peter saw him, he said to Jesus, "Lord, what about this man?" Jesus said to him, "If it is my will that he remain until I come, what is that to you? You follow me." So the saying spread abroad among the brothers that this disciple was not to die. Yet Jesus did not say to him that he was not to die, but if it is my will that he remain until I come, what is that to you? This is the disciple who is bearing witness about these things, and who has written these things, and we know that his testimony is true. Now there are also many other things that Jesus did. Were every one of them to be written, I suppose that the world itself could not contain the books that would be written. So we have three things here, I think, that John wanted to clear up, and that's what he did here in chapter 21. The first is a clear mission for the disciples. The second is the restoration of Peter. And the third is a rumor about John himself. And he wanted to clear that up. So, the mission for the disciples. They were back on their home turf. They were back doing what they were used to do. Commercial fishing was what they did, right? Peter, they had been told that Jesus will appear to them. He had appeared to them before the time. This was actually the third time that Jesus had appeared to them. And but they were waiting, and there was time, and Peter said, I'm going fishing. I got bills to pay. I got stuff to do. I'm going fishing. Could this have been a doubt of some sort? Could this have been avoidance or moving away from the mission that Jesus had given him? I'm not sure. But he knew how to fish, and he knew how to do this, and he knew that in Galilee Jesus was going to meet him, and so he said, "I'm going fishing." So they said, "We'll go with you." So there were 7 of them that went up there, and the Sea of Tiberias is the Sea of Galilee, also called the Sea of Gennesaret and the Sea of Kinnereth. It's a fresh body of water. It's north. I think you are familiar with that. And so now they were out here fishing, and it's an interesting story. They fished all night. At night was the time to fish. Then the fish couldn't see the net as well, and it was much easier for a catch. And so they go out and they're fishing all night, and they come back in, and they realized after Jesus had called to them, there's a fire on the shore. But they realized after Jesus called to them, "Children, have you caught any fish?" I'd imagine children was something that stood out. Children, we're grown men, we're commercial fishermen, for crying out loud. You call us children, right? But they said, "No, we fished all night. We haven't caught anything." And cast your net on the other side of the boat, right? Does this remind you of anything? Right? Something similar had happened before, hadn't it? All right. Luke 5, they had fished all night, and they had what we reluctantly call in the commercial fishing business a water haul. They got nothing but water. And so they fished all night, but you still have to clean your nets because you have weeds, you have all sorts of grungus in your nets, and unfortunately no fish slime. But they had to clean their nets, and so it's still a lot of work. So they had been cleaning their nets. They went out in the boat, went out further, went out deep, put their nets in, and they caught a large catch of fish. This one's a little bit different. But they had learned if someone from the shore, namely Jesus, tells you to cast your net, typically it's a good idea to cast your net again, even though you'd fished all night, not got anything. So they cast it on the other side, and they just had what we in my commercial fishing group used to call a jagwad of fish. 153 large fish. Did you notice that? 153 large. Not these dinky little sockeyes. No, these are good sized ones here. So they got a huge load of fish, and they were now employed, and this mission was not commercial fishing, but it was the one who had total say over all creation and the fish of the sea. And now their mission changed. They realized, oh, this is it. Jesus had told them, you're going to be fishers of men, right? I mean, we had seen that. What does that mean? How is that? I don't know. But now, obviously, this is a different deal. Jesus could provide all of their needs, could meet the needs for them in their ministry. He didn't need resources. He had all the resources he needed. He would take care of them. And so they had this incredible load of fish. They said, come onto shore. And he had a charcoal fire there. It's interesting. There was also a charcoal fire at the trial in the high priest. I'm not sure about the charcoal fire. It's interesting about that, but it obviously is a little bit better for cooking than the inconsistencies of a wood fire. But he had a charcoal fire going there, and he said there was fish on the fire, but bring some fish, and we'll have breakfast here. And this type of haul and all of this, the satisfaction of producing and bringing in a massive load of harvest is wonderful. It's amazing. You know this if you've gone fishing and you get a great load of fish. You know this if you've gone hunting and you actually come back successful. You know this if you've done any farming or gardening. When you harvest, that's pretty good, especially when you get more than you had imagined. And so they knew this was Jesus. Again, this was the third time that he had appeared to them, and they realized things have changed here. Jesus can meet our needs. We don't need to fish anymore. Not only can he meet our needs, he can meet our needs abundantly so. And so things had changed here. And so he, as we're going, we read that after breakfast, he and Jesus go on a little walk. If you notice verse 20, it says, Peter turned and saw the disciple whom Jesus loved, who was following them. And so obviously they were off on a little stroll on the beach somewhere, I would imagine. The disciples were following him. They wanted to hear, but it doesn't sound like they were quite totally included in the conversation. Probably we're getting some of the feedback and some of what was going on, but maybe not totally. But Peter and Jesus go on this little walk. And you know what happens here. Just kind of a heart-wrenching time for Peter. Jesus asks him, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? And the these is It's more than just fish. It's the fishing industry. It's your way of life. It's all that you have. It's your fishing partners. It's the boat. It's this lifestyle. It's this. Do you love me more than what you have going on right here? Do you love me more than these? Was the question, and excuse me. The word for love. I think you're probably familiar with the different terms for love. This is. Agapao, and it is the highest form of love. It's just hold up in highest total devotion and commitment is what Jesus asked him, and Peter replies. He says, "Yes, Lord." Recognizing who Jesus was, he says, "Yes, Lord." So he knows who Jesus is. He knows that he is God. He's obviously witnessed once again the amazing and miraculous power that Jesus has because he is the Son of God. And so he says, "Yes, Lord." He says, "You know that I love you." But Peter, he is confident that he knows that Jesus loves him. He says, "You know that I love you." Yes, Lord, you know that I love you. He's confident in that because he truly did. The word for love that he used there is phileo, which is a brotherly love. It's brotherly affection. And so he asked him, "Do you love me in this intense, most devoted type of love?" And Peter responds with, "You know I love you, brother." You know? So you're going, it's a little odd. They don't match each other exactly, right? And as I was thinking about this and I was studying, it seems to me what is in Peter's mind as he gets asked this question is what happened a week and a half ago when he denied him, right? And so now it's like, "Oh, Lord, you know I love you." And he did. He genuinely did love him. But that's what's in Peter's mind. You know it is. So Peter says, "I love you, brother. I love you." And yet, Christ is not exactly, it's not exactly what I asked you, is it? And so he responds to him. He says, "Feed my lambs, the little ones belonging to Christ, the little believers, feed them, feed my lambs." And so he's given Peter responsibility to take care of and to feed his little ones. He asked him a second time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" And again, agapeo is the word that Christ uses. And Peter says, "Yes, Lord. You know that I love you." Phileo, again. So again, we have this little difference. And Peter, I'm sure, was feeling like he couldn't use agapeo because of his denials. How could I do that? How could I say that of you when I've just proven I'm going to deny? That's my guess anyway. But he says, "Yes, Lord." Again, you know that I love you. You know that I love you, brother. He said, "Tend my sheep." Shepherd, total responsibility. You bear this responsibility for the sheep, for the believers. Tend them. Take care of them. And the third time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Jesus uses phileo. Okay? He uses phileo in this third time. And Peter's grieved because he said to him a third time. Is he grieved because he used the slighter term for love? I don't know. My guess is he's probably grieved because he asked him a third time, "Do you love me?" I've just denied you 3 times. Now you're asking me 3 times. Oh, Oh, I thought this was over. Cut to the heart, right? Well, I think Peter realizes through this that the kind of love that Jesus requires is not available in his own strength. He must be relied on the Lord in order to love him that much. As a matter of fact, we look back, Jesus told him, he knew he would deny him, right? He knew that this was going to happen, all of these things, but that didn't mean that he treated him any differently. So I think Peter's realizing where that type of love comes from, the agapao. Peter responds, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you, phileo. And Jesus restores him with this. And I think Peter knew that he was restored. He knew that he was forgiven. He knew that was over. It was done. And we're going on. He also knew my mission has changed. I understand. And we're going to catch men instead of fish. And so Jesus restores him, and he restores him, but there is a cost, is there not? There's a cost to following Jesus. And we know that there's a martyr's death that awaits him. Church history tells us that Peter was crucified, and he died that martyr's death. And Jesus said, "Follow me." And I think it would be a mistake to read over that "follow me" too quickly. After saying this, he said to him, "Follow me." That "follow me" is, it's done. We're going forward. That's over. This is where we're going. And that's what he was telling Peter. And is that not what he tells us when we have failed our Lord, when we've sinned against him? But as we repent, as he restores us, follow me. We're going forward. And so we go into this, and Peter turns and he sees the disciple whom Jesus loved following there. Now listen to this. Up to this point, he doesn't change this, but John's written in the third person, right? He never mentions him. He always mentions the disciple who Jesus loved, and he points it there. So it's kind of like this little mystery type of thing, right? And so you're kind of going, I'm pretty sure John wrote this. I'm pretty sure he's the one. And you look in other gospels, and John wrote this. But look at what he does here. He goes, so Peter turned and saw the disciple who Jesus loved following them, the one who had been reclining at the table close to them, and said, Lord, who is it that is going to betray you? When Jesus saw him, he said to the Lord, what about this man? So he wants to make sure there's no doubt who he's talking about, right? It's the one who Jesus loved. It's the one that was lying down, the one who said he's going to betray him. So we're pinpointing, okay, now we know who we're talking about. And here at the end of that, we even see verse 24, this is the disciple who is bearing the witness about these things and who has written these things, and we know that his testimony is true. So he is not outing himself necessarily, but he's making it clear this is who's writing this. This is what we're talking about. This is a witness. The author was there, okay? Even though I'm the author's there, right? So, but what he says was, Lord, what about this man? And you wonder about Peter. I mean, Peter's always talking, right? And he's always, asking questions, and he's always saying stuff. And so you look back, Lord, what about, now that you and I are good, what about him, right? What about the one? And again, they were both part of the inner circle, right? They were both part of, Peter, James, and John, Jesus, right? So they were tight. They knew each other very, very well. They had some history amongst themselves, right? through the years. So we know about it. And he's like, hey, so Peter understood, I'm going to die a martyr's death. I mean, I'm doing it. What about him? And so what's said is very interesting. Lord, about what this man, Jesus said to him, if it is my will that he remain until I come, what is that to you? You follow me. And so what had happened was, there was, Peter asked this question. Jesus tells him he says basically, mind your own business. This has nothing to do with you, right? This has nothing to do with you. And I was kind of thinking through why would, I mean, how hard would we say, we'll take care of him. But he's saying, Peter, mind your own business. You follow me. But if you remember, they had argued over who was the greatest, right? There had obviously been comparisons with each other in the past. Covetousness maybe involved in here. Jesus was very blunt, very straightforward, very direct. It doesn't matter what I'm going to do with him. You follow me. You worry about you. Don't worry about him. I got it. But the way this happened, you see, John tells us, so the saying spread among the brothers that this disciple would not die. He wants to make it very clear. He didn't say that this disciple is going to live forever. That's not what he said. And so he clarifies it. Jesus did not say to him that he was not to die, but if it is my will that he remain until I come, what is that to you? This is the disciple who is bearing the witness about these things, who has written these things, that we know that testimony is true. And so obviously there were some rumors going around. Obviously there were some things that were being talked about. Jesus said that John's never going to die. Well, as we go on, who was the last disciple to die? John, right? So as these things are going on, you can imagine there's all this, he's never going to die. And so, what happens when John does die? Now it's the credibility of Jesus and his word that is being called into question, right? So John's like, wait. Stop it. This is not true. He never said that I, or the third guy that wrote this, that Jesus loved, that laid down, he never said that I was not going to die. He just said, if he remains, what is that to you? Don't worry about that. I think for a couple things. I think one, there can be distractions to the gospel. Can there not? There can be distractions to the gospel. You get tied up in all of these things. You get tied up in some of the peripheral things that really don't really matter. It's not that big of a deal. And yet you get so involved in those that it distracts you away from the truth of the gospel. And the second is, I think that John saw that once he died, there would be some evidence or some way where they could say, well, you can't rely on Jesus' words now because look, what Jesus said about John didn't come true and that. And so he wanted to make it perfectly clear that that's not what Jesus said. It's not what he said. Well, John finishes the book, as we read, by giving authority to it, saying that it was written by an eyewitness and eyewitness accounts. And he says there are also many other things that Jesus did. Were every one of them to be written, I suppose that the world itself could not contain all the books that were written. He wants people to understand that all the things that Jesus did, they can't even be written down. They can't even be recorded. And you look at the different gospels, and they have different stories in them. Some are in some are on another, some are in three, and not in one. I mean, there's all sorts of different things. But I think we look at this verse and we're like, well, yeah, you can't even log, you can't even write down all that is supposed to be here, all that Jesus did. Well, a couple takeaways that I had from this that I wanted to share with you. And that is, number one, Jesus will provide for the needs of his followers. Spiritual restoration, physical needs, emotional strength, Jesus will provide. It's not a surprise to Jesus that you and I have needs, physical needs, emotional needs, spiritual needs. Yes. Does he want us to talk with him about those? Yes. Does he want us to ask him for those? Yes. I mean, you look at the Lord's Prayer, right? Give us this day our daily bread. Okay? God does want us to talk to him and ask him there. Jesus is wanting that, but he will provide for the needs of his followers. He also is the good shepherd that takes care of his own sheep. He takes care of them. He meets their needs. He meets their doubts when they need to have their doubts clarified and when they need to have that. He is there for his sheep. That doesn't mean that he makes the path so easy that it's just a simple path and we just go along it. No. He wants us to dig into his word. He wants us to spend time in his word and in his truth. That is very important. But he does take care of his sheep. And I think we need to go back to the first two verses that I read, John 20:31. This is why it's written. Now Jesus did many other things in the presence of his disciples, which are not written in this book. But these are written so that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. It's pretty clear what he wanted to communicate to us. But also, I would tell you this. As you are talking with others, as you're in spiritual conversations, if you're not exactly sure, people have said, well, I read the Bible, I didn't really get it, or I Leviticus, I couldn't really, what. If you're talking with people, say, read the Gospel of John. Here's the Gospel of John. Read through this. Why was it written? It was written so that you might believe and you might believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and you might have life in his name. That's why it was written. Tell him to read the Gospel of John. And then let's talk about it. Read it together with him. It's one place that is so clear as to who Jesus is and what he came to do. That you can point people there and they can get it. The Gospel of John's an amazing book. I hope that you will take some time and go back over what we have studied here the last few years. And I hope that it will penetrate your heart and mind and that you will find life in his name because of who Christ is.